Hey guys, and welcome back to the Fantasy Table brought to you by the Blue Stable. I am once again your host, Luke Verkamp, and tonight we got a busy one. So Theo, how you doing?
A lot better. I mean, things are starting to get real interesting with bye weeks. Love seeing the unique lineups.
This
I
week
had to
is
start
bad too.
yeah. I mean, like starting players like Benjamin, in which you never thought that you would start in your whole life, like at the time of the draft. It's kind of fun seeing how that plays out. I got a friend in another league that's his only wide receiver available this week is Zay Jones. So
Whew.
it's awesome. This is my favorite part of the season.
Yeah, these are the weeks that really test your depth on what you were drafting, like in your draft and those waiver pickups that you've been picking up all along. This really starts testing it because, like we said, it's a very tough bye week. We'll get to the bye team weeks in a bit, but it's going to be a rough one out there. But anyway, like I said, it's going to be a packed episode today. We're going to be doing news and notes like always, talk about bye weeks, and then Theo has got you some trade targets for certain situations. So if you're strong in one area and need help in another area, these are kind of the trade targets you should be looking at. But anyway, we'll go straight to the news and notes. Cam Akers is on the outs for the Rams. Now, this was a crazy situation. Just all of a sudden, he was out due to personal reasons. My immediate thought was that, oh, it probably was like a family matter that it was an out at such a late in the week. That was my worst fear anyway. Turns out it's just the Rams and Cam Akers seem to be butting heads, and Cam Akers is likely going to be on the trade block, maybe traded by the trade deadline. Tua has cleared from the concussion protocol. He is going to be named the starter against the Steelers, which is great. I'm glad to see that Tua is back and healthy. Let's hope that he stays healthy the rest of the season. Please, no more concussions. I do not want
Yeah,
to see anything else happen to Tua.
it's gonna be scary actually seeing him out there. And I'm just worried. I'm
I
just
get
worried myself.
I gotta say, this reminds me of like Alex Smith after all of his stuff that he's went through with his leg. That whenever I saw him out there for the Washington football team at the time, whenever I saw him go out there, like I was just worried for him. Like I know his wife was there; she had to be worried sick too. But I'm just like, after what you went through, and you're like going back out there like this soon afterwards. I'm just hoping nothing like happens. Thankfully, nothing
He's
happened to Alex Smith. So
he said Tua said recently that he did not remember getting
yeah,
how off the field.
yeah. He said that
And
didn't remember the hit either, which is that's scary. Like how? How can you go back after that? Like to me, like man, like as much as you love football, like you got to think that's a question that you ask yourself after that. Like, do I love football this much to where like I don't remember what even happened?
they're just starting. Like the Dolphins were like so
Yeah,
good.
they're just starting to mesh. Yeah. Either way, Carson Wentz has a fractured finger. He will miss some time. They said IR is an option. This is big news for the Colts more than fantasy world, because the Colts really want that third round pick to move up to the second round pick. Still a chance for that, but either way, Taylor Heineke will be the starter in his absence.
I don't think
Um,
it'll happen. I don't think the Colts will get that pick.
there's a chance. It's light, but there's still a chance. Don't give me hope. Um, with the Panthers being in a fire sale mode, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. Christian McCaffrey is being put out there as a potential trade option. I know some teams rumored was like the Bills, even though they said that's kind of not a thing anymore among some other teams. So CMC could be on the move.
Yeah, I'm the teams of apparently there's multiple teams that have been calling. Bills touched up on Christian McCaffrey during the offseason, but it seems like the Bills, out of all the teams that have called, are the or one of the least interested teams, but they have been contacting him the longest for Christian McCaffrey. None of the other teams that contacted the Panthers are named, listed to the public. So you just kind of have to go off speculation that these teams are one running back away from being Super Bowl contenders. So make that as you will. If Christian McCaffrey joins a Super Bowl contending team, you already know that they got a good offense and they're just missing a piece. He could be that piece. His fantasy stock probably won't drop down too far because of the types of teams that are targeting him.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know, teams like San Francisco could really kind of use a guy like him, like if they're wanting to make that push. But yeah, I don't know where he would go if he does move, but either way, wherever he goes, if someone's trading for him, they are going to use him. So like even though Christian McCaffrey is doing very well right now, he could be doing even better on a new team. He could be like the Christian McCaffrey of old that we have saw.
I think the 49ers were the team most people assumed were highly interested in CMC. And I was thinking about it. That's basically adding a reverse Debo Samuel. Like Debo Samuel is known for being a wide receiver, but he plays running back. And Christian McCaffrey, complete opposite is that.
Says the
So
Rams are also interested.
yeah, I mean, just send them Cam Akers. I like Cam Akers
Cam
more
Akers in
than
like a third day pick. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know what else.
I know Panthers, they said Tepper's asking price is multiple first round picks. And of course he's gonna say that, right? And that's wishful thinking. But what reporters and beat reporters I'm seeing are saying is that it's most likely going to be a just one first round pick if it becomes a bidding war. If it doesn't become a bidding war and everybody's just kind of cooled off on CMC, it's most likely going to be a day two pick.
Yeah, it'd be like a second or third round pick at that point. But moving on, DeAndre Hopkins is eligible to return this week, and that is not the only Cardinals news that we have this week. Hollywood Brown is expected to miss 6 weeks with a foot injury. It was originally reported that he could potentially miss the rest of the season. Thankfully, he's not. Um, but instead, the team traded for Robbie Anderson from the Panthers for 2 day 3 picks, which I thought was interesting. But Robbie Anderson is now an Arizona Cardinal.
Well, going back to the Hollywood Brown missing the couple of the 4 to 6 weeks, I it's kind of scary to me if you own him because a lot of fantasy experts were saying you're he was drafted at his ADP for these 6 weeks, for these first 6 weeks. And it's like he's going to be an elite wide receiver these first 6 weeks. And then once DeAndre Hopkins comes back, he's not going to operate at the same volume or the same, maybe same efficiency, but definitely not at the same volume. And somehow he gets hurt right during that last week in which he was drafted for. So you probably had another player if you drafted Hollywood Brown in mind that he'll slowly fade out while you have a rising star on your bench to kind of come up and fill a spot. But his efficiency throughout the season and missing that in your starting lineup is going to hurt. And luckily, I got some trade targets I want to talk about later that you might be interested in.
Yeah, Hollywood, like he was great to begin the season. He was actually fourth in targets per game, just behind Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, and Tyreek Hill. That was it. He was getting the target share that everybody was hoping for. Um, just and he was on pace for a great season, even though like DeAndre Hopkins is coming back. It's just unfortunate that he had to have this injury right now in the middle of the season.
Now, I know I asked you this before the show, but do you think the addition of Robbie Anderson affects how many snaps or how many routes run Rondale Moore will get?
Yeah, so I know what I mentioned earlier was like, yes, the Cardinals added Robbie Anderson, but they also added DeAndre Hopkins in a sense because like it's a new season, it's a new team. It's not like we're not really basing a lot on last year. We're basing some on last year, not a lot, because we have the stats of this year and we saw what happened this year. Um, to me, Robbie Anderson will play a role in this offense, but so will Rondale Moore, so will DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, we saw in the first few weeks that Greg Dortch played a role in this offense. So I feel like Rondale Moore is still going to play a role. I don't think Robbie Anderson will decrease it that much. I think it will decrease, but it's not necessarily just because of Robbie Anderson, because DeAndre Hopkins is back. So you're going to see a decrease because obviously they're going to play DeAndre Hopkins first. Like he's going to be the guy. But Rondale will still probably be one of the top options while Robbie is still learning the playbook. Like I don't think he's going to play tonight. You guys are watching on Thursday, so tonight's game, like I would be shocked if Robbie's out there in this quick of a turnaround. But yeah, quick answer. I think that it will go down, but not necessarily just because of Robbie, because they're adding also DeAndre Hopkins back.
Yeah, DeAndre Hopkins being back. I know he's 30. He didn't play as well as he should have last season, as like we expect DeAndre Hopkins to play. But he is a factor. That Arizona offense is not the best it could be. Possibly even it's probably worse than how I'm putting it. But DeAndre Hopkins coming back, he's the X factor, right? He's got that little Madden thing that whenever he's on the field and he does something, it's going to help, right? Whatever team he's on, he's going to help their offense production. It doesn't matter who the quarterback. He's that type of player. Hopefully his presence then starts picking up Kyler Murray's production and how he's quarterbacking that offense, opens up the run game a little bit with James Conner. I know he's a bit banged up, but definitely having those threats as DeAndre Hopkins. They would love to have Marquise Brown, but they don't, unfortunately. And this might still be a little bit unstable, I think, for the next coming weeks in the Cardinals offense.
Right. Deshaun Watson has been following his terms of his suspension. He's on track to return on time for the December 4th game against the Houston Texans. Shock, shock. But Deshaun Watson on track to return in his scheduled time. Panthers have designated Sam Darnold to return from IR. So he is now that he is designated to return, they got a limited time before they can actually activate and put him back on the 53-man roster. This could either mean PJ Walker's time as a starter is done or competition for Baker Mayfield, both. But Sam Darnold might be back.
Yeah, I know Baker Mayfield is out. He's week by week basis on his injury. PJ Walker, he did not run an NFL offense last week. That was not at all what it should be. Just from that performance alone, I'm pretty confident that if Sam Darnold is active on the roster, it's like he is going to start and he should start. If he doesn't start, it's incompetence at that point. And that's officially the tankathon for the Panthers is on for the first overall pick.
I mean, at this point they should tank because please help DJ Moore. That's all. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, the return of Sam Darnold is going to make production better for the rest of the offensive players. But for DJ Moore, it's going to be going from his 1.2 points to 3.4. That's as much. Christian McCaffrey, of course, he's going to get his 25 points. But for DJ Moore, other wide receivers, Tommy Tremble, it's nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Absolutely.
Except for Bryce Young. Bryce Young coming soon.
Please. They need that. They need that so bad.
DJ Moore does need that so bad.
DJ Moore needs that more than anybody could ever know. Lovie Smith wants Dameon Pierce to get 20 carries.
That's interesting because he's already pretty efficient. I mean, like with the volume he's getting, I know he's not like the most eye-popping efficient running back, but to hear a head coach on say that he wants to give his young running back more carries. Now, that just might be filler quotes. Who knows? Like he may or may not hold up to that promise. But if he does, I mean, he said it, right? We just got to go by the man's word.
It's funny though. I'm looking it up right now. The last 3 weeks, 20, 14, and 26 carries. So
24 and
that's a like he's averaging 20 carries this last 3 weeks.
okay, then that's probably just him saying that he wants to maintain Pierce's production, which
I mean,
is double thumbs up for me. I mean,
he's
that's
the best player
perfect
on that offense. So
for fantasy purposes. Then hearing Lovey Smith say that he wants to keep Pierce at 20 carries, that's that should be very comfortable for fantasy owners to hear. Um, I would confidently start him as probably with how shaky the RBs are. Like he's an RB1 for the rest of the season if he maintains 20 carries.
yeah, like at that production, especially since you're like the best player on the offense, like yeah, he should be plenty fine. Travis Kelce restructures his contract, opening up some cap space. Everyone's hope is that DJ Moore gets traded there. I doubt that happens. Um, they're also hoping Christian McCaffrey gets traded there. I also doubt that happens. The most likely thing I can think of would be Odell signing there. And it was just announced a couple hours ago that the Chiefs are considered a strong contender for Odell. Um, Chiefs need some wide receiver help. Odell would definitely fit that. I know I saw something, I think it was yesterday, where they mentioned that Odell's timetable kind of got set back a little bit more. And it's more likely going to be like December. But the Chiefs are making the playoffs. It's not really a question about that. But getting Odell is more for the playoff push, Super Bowl run than anything. But if he's on the team by that fantasy playoff window, he might be able to do something for fantasy purposes. Aaron Rodgers was a did not participate in practice with a thumb injury. DeAndre Swift is trending to return week 7. It's funny, I see the trending to return, and it reminds me how Michael Thomas was trending to return week 6, and he's already ruled out for week 7. So I'm hoping Swift plays. He doesn't have quite the same injury history as Michael Thomas, so I think that he might. And then this was the funniest thing I could find on the week, but Ron Rivera wants Antonio Gibson to get more snaps, which is funny because you would think that he could maybe give him more
make it work.
snaps.
Yeah, he can make it work. He's definitely has the job title for it.
He
He
is the
is
head coach.
he
I
is
feel like
not under his that is not under his pay grade. That is quite literally his pay grade.
I, I feel like he has a pretty big say on if he could get snaps or not. But the thing is he's going to say this. He wants Gibson to get more snaps, and then it's just going to be as punt returner.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, or like punt coverage and not like actual running back or wide receiver.
Now I know Brian Robinson got shot in the knee, but all right, and he came back. He didn't put up too great of numbers. I know they definitely limited his carries, but if it all depends on how much it increases this coming week. And I think if Rivera says that, he might not be too confident in Brian Robinson being where he is and where he's expected to be. Well, I know he's probably not expected to be playing an NFL football game after getting shot in the knee like 2 months ago or a month and a half ago. But I guess that's good news for Gibson fantasy owners to during these bye weeks, troubled times. Hearing that's probably a little bit of a positive remark that says, hey, maybe start him in the flex if you're and if you got all those teams that we're about to mention.
If you are down bad, you can
Yes,
start
if you are
Antonio
down
Gibson.
bad, that is the slang I was looking for. Correct.
But yeah, Brian Robinson definitely did not look as explosive a running back as what Antonio Gibson has been. Um, not I'm not saying that
Yeah.
is be any fault of Brian Robinson because
No bias, no
yeah,
bias.
no bias from me. But I mean, what do you expect after you got shot in the knee? Like you gotta
Yeah.
expect that you're not going to be like that explosive. So maybe they just give Brian Robinson more snaps, maybe more carries that'll get him going type thing. But either way,
Yeah.
potentially Antonio Gibson gets a little more snap share.
If they split carries these next 2 or 3 weeks while Carson Wentz is hurt. So if they split carries throughout the time Carson Wentz is hurt, I think that's not good news for Brian Robinson, but that's pretty good news for Antonio Gibson for what he was projected to do this
Right,
deep into the year.
right. So our bye weeks this week. It's a tough one. Buffalo Bills, Los Angeles Rams, Minnesota Vikings, and the Philadelphia Eagles, aka pretty much most of the top fantasy players this year. You got Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen, um, Justin Jefferson, Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown. Yeah, it's rough. But hey, survive and advance. That's all you gotta do.
It, the Rams, out of those teams, the Rams have the worst record. Isn't that crazy? Like they're
Which
three and
you would
three.
never think to start
They're
out the year.
no
Like
these.
I thought the Eagles were going to be a good team because like they were really good with their offseason moves. But I wasn't expecting undefeated to start the year, the last undefeated team. I was not expecting the Vikings to be a one-loss team this far in this season. And Bills, I think everyone knew the Bills were going to be dominant.
Mhm.
But yeah, the Rams just have not looked great.
A lot of good football absent this week. It's
Yes, yes.
which is what I said at the beginning of the episode. It's going to make for a lot of interesting lineups, but I got some players that you might want to trade for
Now, real
during
quick,
the. Oh, you can go ahead. That was a clean intro. Come on, that was
I
a
know,
clean transition.
but
Come on.
I was talking
All
about the
right,
bye weeks.
you say what you have to say. You have to say. Okay, I'll
Okay,
wait.
so if you have a few players on bye, do you just take the L, take those zeros, or do you go out and try to make moves?
Depends on the player and depends on how many players. If it's a lot of players, then I'm going
Because
to try trading for like someone else's bench player
yeah,
that is like I don't like let's say another team has all their starters this week. They don't have any of the good teams that we listed. They definitely have someone on their bench that could be starting on your lineup and they're not going to be using anytime soon. Definitely send something their way to try grabbing that bench piece. Um but I wouldn't panic too much because you draft at the start of the year without thinking about bye weeks.
right.
You don't care about how many players match up, but sometimes it all depends on what your record is. If you need to win this week to try to keep up, that definitely requires a trade.
I gotta
That's
say
my
because
philosophy on it.
say you had to drop someone like Khalil Herbert, like would you do that to pick up just a spot start guy that probably isn't going to be anything worth the rest of the season? Just to hope to try to get a win this week?
So like, hypothetically, if Khalil Herbert is on a bye, you're saying,
No, I'm saying like you got a
or saying
player
like,
on bye this week and you need to make a bench room.
oh,
You're not going to drop like Stephon Diggs. You're going to drop one of your bench players and say
that's
like Khalil
true.
Herbert's one of your bench players.
Or if you could start Khalil Herbert in that spot. I mean, I don't know what like the waivers look like at that point, but I mean, that's
I
why he's
mean,
on your bench.
I gotta say, this week's waivers was not good. So like, let me just look at
Yeah.
some like Wandale Robinson. I mean, I feel like Wandale is a pretty good one actually, but
Mm.
or Zay Jones.
Would I drop Khalil Herbert to play in. I'd say not Wandale. Zay Jones, yes.
I'd actually flip that.
Really, I don't like the amount of snaps that I know Wandale looked explosive, and a lot of people are saying that with the volume that he got, like he did a really good job and he looked great.
I
You
know
might see that.
it's scary, but
Yeah, I
just
think
on
he only.
upside for the rest of the season and plus upside for this game because we're playing Jacksonville, like I'd maybe do
Yeah,
it.
but I mean, Khalil Herbert, like in that hypothetical scenario, it's difficult, but if you need to win, you're gonna have to make that move to play
Mhm.
the better player in your lineup.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta say to me, I there's no easy wins in fantasy football. Anything can happen any given week. I am all in. Just try to win. Like
Hmm.
unless you are sitting comfortable, like undefeated, then maybe you can accept the loss. But to me, I say go for it. Just do what you gotta do. If you can trade to potentially get a good, like if you can trade a couple of your bench players to get an upgraded bench player, that would be a solid spot start for this week. I'd very be interested in doing that. Speaking of trade players, Theo's your guy.
There we go. There's the good transition. All right. So what I have prepared for you guys today is trade targets for each situation. Now, I can't do a trade target situation for every possible situation because that is impossible. Too diverse of lineups, too random. You get the point. But I have a general kind of consensus of what type of situations that people can be fit into. So situations are if your wide receiver group is great, but you want a top tier running back. If your running back group is great, which I would be surprised because not many people's are, and you're looking for a
Is there
top
any
tier
way to
wide.
get two top tier running backs in general? Like
I mean, I
asking
know
for a
I showed
friend.
you, I know I showed you that one league where
Yeah,
I
that
have
is
Christian
true. Yeah.
McCaffrey and Saquon, which I mean, I was giddy when I was drafting them both already, but it's like that's rare. Like that barely happens. That
I
only
gotta say,
happens in
how many teams has that like combination?
like dynasty
I feel
teams
yeah,
and
I feel like an actual realistic combination is like having one of CMC or Barkley and like Josh Jacobs because Josh
hmm.
Jacobs was drafted pretty late, and I'm not saying like Josh Jacobs is elite, but he's been very good this year.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about putting Josh Jacobs as one of my top tier running back selections to trade for, but I think his price was too high. He's
Yeah, probably.
performing extremely well, and with how shaky all the running backs are, I don't think anybody's gonna want to give up a third or fourth round draft pick. Josh Jacobs playing like an RB1. That's they're gonna want to keep that. But moving on, we got if you're looking to upgrade your RB2, if you're looking to upgrade your wide receiver 2, and if you're looking for consistency at the quarterback position and attempting to find a solution to your tight end struggles.
Oh man,
That one is going to be fun. But
is that possible?
is it possible? We
I'll
will
tell you the
see.
answers. I'll tell you the answers right now. Travis Kelsey, Mark Andrews, end of story.
Yeah, I was looking at the fantasy stats and like just like the advanced stats, the expected points, whatnot, like yards per catch. It's Travis Kelsey, Mark Andrews. That's
Yeah,
it.
it, by a landslide. It's crazy.
The point totals, everything. It's just those two. But hopefully my picks
Yeah.
here can help you try to find some level ground that you can constantly start week by week, week
Safe
to week.
floors.
Safe floors, yes. So just trying our hardest here. But in our first situation, your wide receiver group is great, but you want that top tier running back to put you over the edge and into a deep playoff run. I can't confirm a championship. I'm not going to do that on this show because, like I said, and I'll say many times probably, Your lineups are too diverse. I can't predict everything. Your best bet is just to DM us and we can help. All right, that's a little tag right now. We're willing to help. But my first subject or my first player is whatever you like to call is DeAndre Swift. I like DeAndre Swift as a top tier running back trade target because you're buying low. You're buying low with him, and when he's healthy, he's crazy efficient. He's got 8.5 yards per carry on the season, and which is first among running backs. And he has 2 runs for 40 plus yards, which is tied for first. Now, the con, of course, is his health. He's been plagued with injuries, not much last year. Yes, this year, the year before last year, yes. But it's a risk that you have to pay for a top tier running back, right? I'm trying to give you guys that you're not going to find like Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley is going to be impossible to trade for. DeAndre Swift probably has people like people out there are probably trying to sell DeAndre Swift. And if you're not in that league, I guess try sending a fair price for him. Another aspect I like about DeAndre Swift is his playoff schedule. Um, if you need that top tier running back and you're confident in how many wins you have, you're ready for the playoffs, your percentage is like over 90% going to be in the playoffs, trade for Swift. Swift will put you over the edge. If he maintains his health by like week 14, he is going to be that asset that carries you to the championship. Now, that one I can confirm.
Yeah, I gotta say now's a great time to be like looking forward to playoff schedules. Like if you are in a comfortable position, like 4-2, 5-1, 6-0, like if you're in that position, now's a great time. And like Theo said, Swift, really good option. And people that have Swift are probably like frustrated by now, like, oh, he's been hurt for so long, he's been injured. Like I just want him to play, drafted him to be the guy, and they might just want to get rid of him.
Yeah, I mean, these targets are that's what they're meant for. I mean, analyze your own situation. Here are the information we have given you. Make your own decision. But hopefully, we can put these people on the radar that you might possibly want to try to target. My next running back I have in this situation is Kenneth Walker the third. Now, this one is going to be a little bit difficult to trade for since a lot of people are talking about how great he looked last week. And I will admit he looked fantastic running the ball. I was a Rashad Penny truther heading in the season, and he got hurt, unfortunately. But Kenneth Walker the third, he looks like the better back in that system. Seattle keeps scoring. Their offense is not bad as what we thought it would be. Geno Smith is getting them into the red zone. He's doing great. Stats I have on Kenneth Walker to try to convince you. He's top 15 among running backs in points per snap, yards per carry, and red zone carry percentage. So the red zone carry percentage is the amount of carries he has within 20 yards of the end zone. And seeing him in the top 15 in that stat, I know smaller sample size, but with one game in and a couple snaps in the previous 5 weeks, that's that's good enough for me for him to land in the top 15. He's also top 5 in missed tackles and missed tackles per attempt per carry. This one just goes to show you how well of a runner he is, and he's going to be that guy throughout the rest of the season that you're going to want on your lineup as the top running back. Now, am I confirming if that's going to be an RB1? No, but he will be a fringe RB1, I believe, by the end of the season if he keeps up these stats. One con I do have with him is he's pretty inefficient in the passing game. He has gotten targets, but he hasn't been able to do much with those receiving targets. He's at the bottom of like targets, like yards per target, um, yards after catch. He's not that efficient. I mean, but you're not going to trade for him for his receiving. He's kind of an iffy one for me because if you're in a PPR league, you might want to avoid trading for him as your top running back. Well, but like in a half PPR or no PPR league, I think that his efficiency when running the ball kind of omits that. My next situation I have is the running back group is great, but you need a top tier wide receiver. My first one I have with this is Mike Evans. So Mike Evans, according to Fantasy Pros, is the wide receiver 10 for the rest of the season. Now they rank these based on the experts they have on staff, but if all the experts at Fantasy Pros list him as the wide receiver 10, that got my eyes open. I went in to look. He's among the top in the league in red zone usage. He is getting the ball in the end zone, scoring touchdowns. I mean, he's got 4 on the season so far, I believe. Three. Okay, yeah. So he has 4 targets in the end zone. He's got 3 touchdowns. And he's got a really easy schedule. I mean, he's got Panthers and Ravens in the next 2 games. So during this kind of trade time where a lot of people are starting to pick it up, put Mike Evans on your radar. I think he's going to be a good long-term asset. My next one is Michael Pittman Jr. The value is just low enough to buy him at a wide receiver 2 price. A lot of people got him in the 2nd round, 3rd round, so not many people would be too comfortable sending him away if he's in a crowded wide receiver room in your fantasy league. They might part ways with him, but if he's sticking as their true wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2, it might be hard, but his value is probably right now at his lowest as it would be. Well, last week would have been a good time, but who would have predicted the Colts to revamp their offense, which is what I was about to say next is my next point. They're finding their rhythm. The Colts are finding their rhythm on offense. They showed it against the Jaguars. He's got the highest target share on that roster with Matt Ryan and the amount of volume he's throwing the ball at. It's a green light for Michael Pittman Jr. I know you wrote something down, Luke. He's the wide receiver. What was it again?
He's wide receiver 9 in points per game in PPR leagues.
Wide
So
receiver. Yes. So I
that's
mean,
good.
yeah, that
That's
is
pretty
good.
good.
That is good. Of course, these are top tier wide receivers, so they will cost more. You will have to give up some pretty valuable assets, but right now, from what I'm seeing, they are at one of their lowest values that you could snag them at. My next situation is if you're looking to upgrade at your running back, at your second running back spot. My first one is Travis Etienne. A lot of people have Travis Etienne as a buy now guy. He hasn't it's weird because on Twitter you see all these fantasy football accounts creators, they're all saying that he broke out. But it's like, oh, Travis Etienne has arrived. He's here. He's surpassed James Robinson in like carry percentages, like snap percentages. Like that's what we predicted. Isn't that like he's doing what we thought he was doing? So, but I don't know how many people that play fantasy football are in tune with the community and seeing all that stuff. So, of course, if you're with one of those nuts in your league that has Travis Etienne, it's going to be near impossible to trade for him. But I'm pretty sure that a high percentage of you guys in your leagues got someone with Travis Etienne on their roster. He just scored over 10 points in half PPR in the last 2 games. So he hasn't done anything too dramatic. But yes, his snap share has flipped with Robinson and it's increasing. He's still that wide receiver target. Well, not wide, he's still that receiving target in the backfield for Trevor Lawrence. And with that, he's got a safe floor. He's got a comfortable floor you could depend on with your RB2 for the rest of the season. My next upgrade at RB2, if you're looking for one, is Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones, Packers have been struggling. This has been known. A lot of those wide receivers, running backs, quarterback, tight end. Well, Tunyon has been kind of playing above expected, but they're not playing what they should be playing. And I believe that is because their whole roster is so young. They got a young wide receiver core, somewhat inexperienced compared to what they had in Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers. He's not looking like himself. He's battling that thumb injury. He missed practice today. Thursday, he might be limited. So it's off to a rough start. But I do believe that they'll eventually get into rhythm. Aaron Jones, he's at 5.8 yards per attempt and 3.6 yards after contact per attempt, in which land him in the top 10 in both categories. And the other statistic I have is that he has 0.85 points per touch in fantasy. So fantasy point 8.5 fantasy points. I'm kind of talking too fast here. I'm tripping over myself, but he's got 0.85 fantasy points per touch, which marks him 16th among running backs. That is an RB2. He's top 10 in the yards per attempt and yards after contact. Got top 24 fantasy points per touch. He's the guy that I'm looking at that a lot of people are kind of ignoring this season because he hasn't had that big game recently, right? He had that big game earlier in the season. And now time has kind of mellowed that out. His value's decreasing. Packers aren't playing well. They just lost to the Jets. Someone might be looking to sell him, and you get him during that playoffs time. That offense ramps up. They get in a rhythm. You find yourself a great RB2.
Yeah, real quick with Aaron Jones. I did make a off-season Twitter thread saying to draft him, and I was kind of wrong about it because he hasn't looked as great as I thought he was going to. But the thing is the first 2 weeks he played against pretty good matchups. He did really well. And then since then, he hasn't played very good matchups, and he hasn't done that well. Like Theo said, this offense is pretty young. It's very inexperienced, but Aaron Rodgers, he always like RELAX. Like, just wait. Just wait. He's going to come. He's going to come. He's going to be that guy by the end of the season, I'm sure. Um, Aaron Rodgers always seems to find a way to, as the season goes on, he gets better. And I'm sure that Packer offense as a whole will end up getting better as the season goes on.
Yep. And his partner in crime, AJ Dillon, he's not playing well either. That offense, he's not as productive as he could be, I guess. So Aaron Jones, he's my RB2 target, my last one. Looking for an upgrade at wide receiver 2 now. I got 3 options for this. I don't have too much statistics on them. I looked at it myself. I trust it. I like it. So my first option is T. Higgins. So T. Higgins was drafted pretty highly, anticipated to be that second-hand man to Jamar Chase. But right now he's battling injuries, fighting through, trying to find production under that Joe Burrow volume. But I like it. I look at how many targets he's receiving when he's available, and I think his time will come. I think if they keep giving him those targets, they keep feeding him under that Joe Burrow Cincinnati Bengal volume, he's going to be there as a solid wide receiver 2 for the rest of the season. Chris Godwin, he's the next guy I have as an upgrade for wide receiver 2. That Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense, not the same problem as the Packers. Like, they're not young, but they're just not playing as expected. And I feel like they'll see some positive regression towards the average of what they've been doing previously and with Tom Brady, and that involves Chris Godwin. So yes, I do have both Tampa Bay Buccaneers wide receivers on this must trade for because I mean, it's just try to find those quiet teams that have not been doing well recently and they have potential to do well. It's kind of that simple. I mean, you do have to look into it more and like how many targets they're getting, how's their volume in this situation, how's their volume with their partner and the other wide receivers, other positional members. But Chris Godwin, I feel like that is a great candidate in that Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense. And they also have I think they have the second easiest schedule from now into the end of the season. So I know that accounts for a lot of things, defensive linemen, so like positions that Chris Godwin won't necessarily be facing head to head, but averaging it all out, the volume that Chris Godwin will be getting, I like that. Looking for my last one I have is Allen Lazard as an upgrade for wide receiver 2. He is 8th in the NFL in fantasy points per touch. This is among running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. And his volume in these past couple of games has been pretty consistently high. I think it was like 7 targets, 9 targets, 10 targets, 11 targets, around that number. He's the wide receiver 1 in that Packers offense. Once they get into rhythm, watch out for Lazard. I think Lazard is going to be a very stable wide receiver 2 option. He won't be the best one, but he is one that you will feel comfortable playing week in and week out. So my next situation is if you're looking for consistency at the quarterback position, we just talked about him in the news. He's back, Tua Tagovailoa. He's 5th in points per dropback, and my biggest reason to buy low and buy now is his injury. And I hate talking about it like that. And I know Luke has said this too. It feels so dehumanizing to like, oh, you got to get this player because like they just literally couldn't remember what happened like 2 weeks ago. Like, but it's reality. It's reality in the content that we're producing, we're publishing. To a situation, his injury is a perfect buy now candidate for me. And if you're struggling at quarterback, you're one of those people with Trey Lance. I mean, you probably already had that solved, but if you didn't have it solved, Tua is a guy that I like. My next player I have is Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott, kind of the same reason as Tua, not to the same extent, because Tua's is definitely more riskier if he gets injured, because if he gets injured again, especially in a concussion, he's probably out for the rest of the season, if not a year or more. But Dak Prescott, I feel like his absence on the team and the Cowboys winning kind of has people sleeping on his return. People are forgetting how well this offense used to operate under Dak in fantasy last year and 2 years ago. It's ready to explode. All the players are coming back healthy. Dalton Schultz is on schedule. He's going to be coming back soon. Their defense is playing elite football, one of the best in the NFL. Do you know what that leads to? Leads to more scoring opportunities. And with your Pro Bowl quarterback back at the helm, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup is there as well. All the keys are there. So to buy into Dak Prescott at the quarterback position, I feel like is the best to do it right now if you haven't done it already.
Yeah, one quarterback I would also mention, and this goes along with like your dehumanizing like story there. Like I don't support what happened at all, but Deshaun Watson is a really good football player. And
Mm-hmm.
if he is out there on waivers or anything, now is a good time to stash him because as it gets closer, more people are going to notice, more people are going to want to pick him up. How the fantasy quarterback landscape is right now, Watson could easily be a top 5 option as soon as he returns. I personally, like I said, I don't approve of anything that happened, but we are a fantasy football show and we need to give you our thoughts on the fantasy options out there. And to me, Deshaun Watson could be a top 5 option the rest of the year for you once he returns.
Yes, as unethical as it is to talk about these people, I mean, it's the reality of kind of like looking at it through a veil of ignorance, right? You you just have to see the situation that they're in, recognize it, and take advantage of to hopefully win you some money, I guess.
Yeah.
That's the goal here.
And also,
Um,
I forgot to mention it with your wide receiver twos, but fun fact with the like T Higgins, I saw this stat out there before. I don't know the exact numbers because it's a lot, but something I thought was kind of crazy is when T Higgins and Jamar Chase play together, T Higgins outscores Jamar Chase,
I did see that. I did
which
see that.
which is a weird thing, but also like I can kind of understand it because Jamar Chase is probably getting a lot more pressure on him than what T Higgins is. Like Jamar probably opens up so much for T Higgins. It's not like T Higgins is a like average wide receiver. He's still a really good receiver. So, but that's a pretty good that's a pretty interesting stat to throw out there.
Well, that's why I have him on there. He's just not talked a lot about, and I think that was one of the
I think
kind
the
of key
Bengals offense like as a whole isn't being talked about as much just because they
Mhm.
aren't as good this year.
And that's kind of one of the key components I kept in mind when making this list of players is that these players are in offenses that are good offenses. It's just they're not producing as well as they should be within the first 6 weeks, or they're just not in conversation. I mean, the media and like the NFL Instagrams accounts, the Twitters, the big verified ones, their voices, as much as you don't think it matters, they matter in determining who is valued higher than who. If you have one guy that's talked a ton about, you hear his name often, you're going to think that he's relevant, he's good. That's the reality of it. These players haven't been talked about too much. I like T. Higgins, especially for that reason. Um, Finding a solution at tight end is my last situational trade target, hypothetical, whatever you'd like to call it. My first target is Darren Waller. Darren Waller is top 5 among tight ends and red zone usage, and I have him as a good buy low candidate right now because of his health issues. I know the Raiders have a bye week coming up, but if he's out for, I don't know if he'll start this week. Wait, yeah, because the Raiders aren't on bye this week, so I don't know. I don't know if he's back this week, but if he is back this week, you can trade for him. But if he's out this week, they announce it, I think that might actually be better for you to trade him because you sit him on the bench for 2 weeks. It's going to hurt for 2 more weeks, but I do feel like Darren Waller is going to be a good guy to start for the rest of the season. Looking at it now, he didn't practice, so it might be trending that way and him not playing. So I buy him, stash him for 2 weeks on your bench, and hopefully Derek Carr's offense finds a way to get him the ball a little bit more. Oh, his bye week was last week. Okay. You could just say that. You don't have to type it out in his
Yeah, I mean,
chat.
you're on a roll. I don't want to interrupt again.
Hey, you can okay. I've been talking so much. I'll be thankful if you interrupt me, to be
You'd
honest.
enjoy it.
Yes. But okay, so Raiders bye week was last week. Misses this game. I mean, the health issues is my biggest reason here, right? It's not necessarily bye week. It's the fact that he's been out. Um, yeah, I feel like if you need a solution at tight end and you're kind of struggling, don't be afraid to trade for Darren Waller. I mean, his price is probably at his lowest right now. If he remains healthy for the rest of the season, he can easily finish in the top 10, if not top 7 tight ends. My last one I have goes along with Luke's mention of Deshaun Watson in the quarterback consist. If you're looking for a quarterback to provide consistent production, it's David Njoku. So Watson's return is looming. With his talent as a football player, he's going to get David Njoku more volume, and with his production and what he's seeing right now, it's kind of crazy because right now he's top 5 in among tight ends in yards per target. So that efficiency level is already elite. And if you add a better quarterback into that system, he is going to be a guy that you're going to love to start in week by week. Is he going to reach that Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce level? No, no one is, right? That's just those two. They're untouchable. But is he going to reach like a Dallas Goedert, like TJ Hawkinson? I could see it for how well he's been playing. I mean, fantasy pros have him as the tight end 10 for the rest of the season. So if you have a top 10 tight end on your roster and you're starting him throughout the whole season, you're not going to be thinking too much about worrying how to fix this, especially because it's only one position you play.
Hey, I mean, I gotta say, quick flex. I did say at the beginning of the season when we did our rankings that I like Njoku for this year, especially like I didn't think Jacoby was going to hurt him. But anyway, I was just looking
Good call.
since his week 3 breakout, he's averaged over 7 targets a game. So I mean, he's
What more?
going to be
What more to
consistent.
say?
I gotta say that's what you want, like from the tight end position. You just want targets. You just want opportunities, and Njoku's getting those. So yeah, I'm all for it, especially since I like Njoku. But she was a Colt. But I mean, that's just me. And I know Austin really wanted to, but that's not going to
We got Jelani Woods now, all right?
We do got
Future
Jelani
Hall of
Woods.
Famer Jelani Woods
Future.
here.
Hey, I mean, if he keeps up this touchdown pace up, I mean, he's got to be.
He's got to be fantasy relevant if he like pulls up those 2 touchdown games like he did. But I mean, right now, of course, David Njoku's better. Um, I like him. If I don't think you're going to be worrying too much with David Njoku as your tight end.
Yeah, he had I mean, he's shown the upside already there in week 3. He had over 20-point game, and he has the floor. So I feel like he's just such a solid option.
That's it for me, though. That's all my situations.
Well, I did get a notification while you were
Woo!
that Robbie Anderson is playing tomorrow.
He is.
Robbie Anderson
Okay.
is playing Thursday Night Football.
Cold takes
Um,
already from Luke.
yeah, cold takes already in the same episode. But yeah, I am surprised. I mean, I said I would
Me
be
too. Me
surprised, and
too.
I am surprised. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what this is going to mean. I mean, hopefully it just shows us what this offense is going to look like for the next 6 weeks without Hollywood. Um, we'll see how like Rondale, Zach Ertz, DeAndre Hopkins, and Robbie all look. So that's good. Though it is another Thursday night game, so I'm hoping for more scoring this week than the past
Oh,
couple weeks because I didn't watch last week's Thursday night football just because I saw the opponents and I was like, yeah, no, not something I really want to watch.
who was
Bears,
Thursday night was
Bears and Commanders.
oh yeah, that was tough to watch. I
I
watched it.
I didn't really feel like I wanted to watch that, and I'm kind of glad I didn't.
You
Uh,
spared yourself. That game was actually worse than the Colts Broncos game that everybody was complaining about,
that everybody did not like.
which I
Uh,
don't get because it went to overtime. And if a game goes
yeah,
to overtime, it's automatically a good game. So
right, right.
that's
Normally,
my
yeah,
opinion.
yeah. But anyway, guys, that was kind of a little bit of a longer episode, but we just
Sorry.
want no. Hey, it was
I had a
great.
lot to ramble,
I gotta
man.
say, it was great. It was good stuff. I mean, it's right around that time of year when trades make a lot of sense to people. You kind of know what your team is by now. You kind of need to know where your team needs to go. So yeah, I thought it was a great topic, and you did a great job with it. But yeah,
Thank you.
that will be all for us today. So that way we can go on and do our stuff, and you guys can go do your stuff. But
The
thank you all for,
trades.
yeah, go send some trades right now. Go start putting out them offers. But yeah, anyway, hope hope the trade offers go well. Hope you get some accepted, and hopefully you survive these bye weeks because it's rough out there. I feel it myself. But yeah, until next week, guys. Have a good day, good evening, good morning, whenever it is you're watching.
Peace.